Oh, shoot. Sent to live. There we are. Good, we are. Okay, I was making sure we're live. All right. All right, we'll start settling up here. Fire it up, footballers. Welcome to the show, Brian Sandalow. How are you doing?
It's a heck of a day. It's quite a newsworthy day, and it'll take a little bit of time to process. It's quite a momentous day in Chicago soccer and sports.
All right, as people file into the room, I'm working on making sure audio and all that crud is good. It bit us in the butt last time. We had Jiggly on and with True Marty, and we were unable to hear Jiggly the entire time. Well, Marty and I could hear Jiggly, but nobody else could, so created some problems. Let me double check some stuff. But dude, you dropped the story. You were the first one, right? Double check some stuff. But dude, you
on the Twitter handle, on the Twitter gun to fire off first. But the minute I hit send, I kind of thought, like, well, here we go. And boy, it went real quick. The reaction was as loud as I expected. And as I tweeted, and we talked about it before the show started, it was so universally positive, the reaction. There wasn't any naysayers. There were no contrarians, and that surprised me. There's always contrarians out there. And other than one person who, who shall go nameless, everybody on Twitter was reacting so positively. That surprised me. But people being positive didn't surprise me. The 100 out of 100, that surprised me. But it was just a heck of a day for farmers.
Brian, hold on one second. I think I'm having an audio issue. Let me double check this. I apologize. Technical difficulties. Brian, hold on one second. I think I'm having an audio issue. Let me double check this. I apologize. Brian, if you could say a few words, I mean, just like that'll make it easy to check this.
Purple monkey dishwasher. Brian, if you could say a few words.
Okay. Yep. All right. Let me try one thing. I gotta, because your audio is not coming through. And we absolutely need that. Let's do that. Grab that. Click that. Let's see if that does anything. Do a couple tests there, if you will.
Purple monkey dishwasher.
That's a great one. Do a couple tests there, if you will.
That's a great one. four score 7 years ago. Our forefathers.
Shoot, not sounded good, Brian.
I'm sorry.
No. It's not you. It's this silly fangled YouTube live stream. All of it. It's just not doing what we needed to do like it did. Hold on. Let me try something else.
Headphones on. Would that help?
No, I think I just have figured it out. I'm not gonna lie. I think I just figured it out.
Okay.
No, I think I just have figured it out. I'm not gonna lie. I think I just figured it out. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like I'm figuring it out. Yes.
Cool.
Keep talking. So, Brian, you tell about your book.
All right, yeah. So my book was out, came out in June of last year. It's still available on Amazon. It's not quite a New York Times bestseller, but we'll get there someday. Maybe not, but it's available and a little bit obsolete, of course. When you write a history book, they're always going to be obsolete. And if I was going to write a new chapter about the fire, I would probably include today. Actually, I would probably include the last week because it's been one hell of a week. But you can go buy my book. It's on Amazon. It is still the pinned tweet on my Twitter account. You Google me. The book is the first thing that comes up, I think. Sometimes might be first, but it's in the top two. So, and if you ask me nicely, I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh, that's very nice. And we fixed the audio. we are back. So awesome. So let me turn this crud off, dude. Wow. All right, now we can finally break into it. Now technical difficulties are out of the way. Fire, new ownership. Joe Mansueto. Who is this guy? I believe he started his fortune selling Christmas trees in Indiana.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't done that deep a dive into that part of him, but I know that executive chairman of Morningstar, venture capitalist, and here's the thing that's going to probably make fire fans the most interested. He's worth a cool $3.8 billion.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's. I would take the 0.8 personally. I would take point of the 0.8. But that's a huge deal. And not only that, but he seems like he's got connection in the city. He recently bought the Wrigley building, if I'm not mistaken. So he knows how to make big deals in the city. And if the Fire are going to get their own soccer-specific stadium in city limits, they're going to have to learn how to make deals. And they're going to need deal making. And Joe Mansueto might be the guy to do it.
$3.8 billion definitely suggests some talent.
yeah, I could do that. You don't become worth $3.8 billion if you're an empty suit. So that's a good thing for the Fire on a lot of levels. One, that he knows how to make that money, and two, he's got the money there if needed. So this is a very encouraging day for a lot of Fire fans, as we talked about on Twitter. Almost unanimous approval of the deal and everything. Just a momentous day for Chicago soccer.
It's really quite incredible. You dropping it. The news is stunning, but it wasn't to be expected when we had the news coming about the stadium coming out, and then the next day this comes out. Basically, it's big bomb, huge. I mean, and I was coming at it from a point where the stadium move was being announced, and I couldn't get really excited for it. This changes everything.
Right. This does, because if the Fire were going to go into Soldier Field with the same ownership and the same view of how to run a team, then you have to wonder what could they have gotten out of Soldier Field, right? If you, like, let's say you're in a difficult relationship and you move from one apartment to the next, that's not going to change your relationship. But this is different now. This is a completely different way of looking at it, running a team. Now, obviously, Joe Mansueto has not run a Major League Soccer team before. We're going to find out what he's made of. But it was hard. I could see why people had trouble being optimistic about the move if it was going to be the same ownership. Now this changes a lot of the dynamic. And it changes, as I wrote in the paper, you'll be able to read it in print tomorrow. Please buy a paper. It's really a chance for the Fire to reinvent themselves without just becoming a new club. They're a new club in a lot of ways, in every way but their history and probably their name. So it's just I'm having trouble putting it all into perspective, because it's been such a news bomb week. First with the move coming closer to becoming official, and now this. Just a lot to process.
Not to mention the move, the Mansueto leaving, the what this means for the rest of the staff. I'm sure there's concern for who's going to be keeping their jobs and who is not.
Right. There's a human element to this. Now, of course, that leads to the next part of the story is who stays and who goes, and the interest of there will be a lot of interest in Nelson Rodriguez's status and Velko Paunovic's status. That story is still to be told, and not to keep promoting the story I wrote in the paper, but
Link in the description.
Yeah. Link is not quite in the description, but it's in.
I'll put it in I'll have it in the description.
Oh, that too.
And I'll have your Twitter details listed as well.
Terrific, but it's fair to question those guys' futures now. I think if Andrew Hopman had stayed in the organization and stayed as the owner, I was pretty certain that those two were going to be back next season. Now I think a lot of stuff is on the table that wasn't on the table before, and Nelson Rodriguez's future and Velko Paunovic's future are fair questions now. They are fair game.
I got to say, if Mario Mandzukic and Luis Suarez are on the table for MLS, absolutely things are changing.
Yeah, go big. Go big.
And both are going to either coast, I believe.
Right. Well, but that's the thing. Why, for years, we've always heard that most of these players want to end up on the coast, whether it's one of the LA teams now or one of the New York teams or now Miami. There's no reason that the Chicago Fire can't be in that conversation for those guys.
Exactly. And we weren't years ago. That's what made us so angry.
Right. They got Bastian Schweinsteiger, but I feel like Schweinsteiger's more like a critic's favorite. Like if you're just a casual fan, you're not going to recognize what Bastian Schweinsteiger does. People like you, people like me, people like the other guys in the media, people who are really into it, they can see how he sees the game in a different way, the passes that he sees. But he's not a guy that's going to put too many butts in the seats after, I think, his first year. He's a guy whose game is more nuanced, that you have to really understand soccer to understand his genius. Maybe it's time for the Fire to get a real big-time attacking player. I don't know who that is yet, but once again, with this new ownership, everything's on the table.
And then there was another big-time Belgian that was rumored to be going to New York City. I've said his name in a past podcast, but you were kind of talking about it earlier about like the big change for this club, and maybe that was the best thing as a rebrand. I was positing this myself. You don't have to have any comment about it, of course, but there was in one of the articles, may have been yours, and may have been one of the Athletics. Those were the three I was reading. And it mentioned something about fan studies being concluded, blah, blah, blah. And of course, we knew that there were fan studies being concluded about the rebrand and what was going on there. So I just, on a lark, just kind of funnily posited, maybe the people who are looking into the rebrand determined that the best thing for rebranding was a new ownership.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a very strong argument to be made for that. That the Fire name, look, I've kind of kept my opinions to myself about this part because I don't want to color my coverage with my opinions, and I will keep that to myself. But I could certainly, I understand that a lot of people who are Fire fans, Fire supporters, do not like the idea of the rebrand. Now, a new logo, yeah, I think people would be amenable to that because we don't want to get into the design details right now of the 22-year-old logo, but it could use a refresh. It could probably use a facelift. But it's one thing to tweak a logo; it's another thing to blow up an identity, and that's something that a lot of Fire fans were thinking. And that's another thing that needs to be asked of Joe Mansueto. Where is what's the progress with the name change or rebrand? How much of that's going to happen? But I get a sense. I just have a hunch that the name Fire is going to stay. That's not a breaking news story. That's not sometimes reporting name is going to stay. But I've had this feeling for a lot of the time since all that stuff broke that the name will not end up changing because it's one thing to change a name. It's another thing to come up with a name that's really good and threads a really small needle. And that's a very difficult thing. And I don't know if it's even possible to do within a few months.
And what's going to change with this team in a few months? I mean, roster wise.
Well, all 3 DPs are up. Nicholas Gaitan, if he's back, is a DP. I believe Dax McCarty is out of contract after the season. So there is room to change this roster if one has the desire to change this roster. That will be a lot of space. Now, I still think that if Schweinsteiger wants to come back, he will be back. It's hard to tell him, no, we don't want you. So I think if he wants to be back, he'll probably be back with the Fire.
But
that still leaves probably 2 designated players.
But that decision is going to be left on the general manager. Is Nelson Rodriguez still going to be the general manager making that decision to keep Bastian Schweinsteiger to think that that salary is worth it?
See, I feel like the Schweinsteiger decision is not just a Nelson Rodriguez decision. I feel like that's a Joe Mansueto level decision too. Because if you're buying into the team, you're going to want to be involved in that decision. And getting to whether or not to keep your most famous player, who he is that, your most famous player for now at least, you can't just let the GM decide it. That's a franchise defining, that's a changing decision. That's an organizational decision. Whether Nelson Rodriguez is back next season, that's a decision that will still, I think, be made partially at least by Joe Mansueto. Now, again, I don't know him. That's speculation. But from covering sports, not just soccer, for as long as I have, I know that when it comes to the biggest names of the team, that's not just the general manager's decision. That's ownership decision as well.
And we're thinking in terms of there might be only 3 DPs, but might the rules change next year? Is the MLSPA is going to be negotiating, I believe, right?
Man, you just love throwing curveballs, man. You just that's right, because the labor agreement is up in the off season, and I think when people see that the Fire were basically sold for $200 million today, so that was 51% of the team, right? So you multiply that means that they're worth $400 million,
right?
That's going to raise some eyebrows with the MLS Players Association. Those people are looking and thinking, there's a lot of money out there, isn't there? So this is going to, again, another curveball for the Fire. And I'll tell you what, the last thing they want right now, the last thing Joe Mansueto would want right now is a work stoppage. They have all this momentum in the world. They're in Soldier Field. They have the new ownership. And then we don't know when the games are going to start. The players are on strike, and we've locked them out.
Might they change the schedule too?
Who knows? There's so much to juggle these days with the Fire themselves. There's so much to juggle. Even before this news, there's a lot to juggle about their roster, about the name of the team, where they were going to be played, and now you're going to see how the whole organization could change, and you add it all together plus the labor situation. It's a lot. This is going to be an incredibly busy and fascinating offseason, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the developments and seeing what comes of the Fire starting in March. It's going to be a fascinating thing to watch.
By the way, I just want to quick little shout out. Thank you so much for Brian Sandalow coming on the show. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. I have all his details linked in the details below. Smash that like button. Please let us know your appreciation. Let Brian know your appreciation. Smack that like button to let us know. And if you can, subscribe for more Spitting Fire. I mean, that's what it is. We're also available on multiple of other things for after the show. This is only live on YouTube. And then we pump it out to things like Stitcher, iTunes podcasts, Google Play, all those, basically on the other podcasts, Spotify. We're available under Spitting Fire YT. But always appreciate you guys smashing that like button. Let us know the work is appreciated for our guests coming on here. Brian, we were just briefly talking about a couple of our DPs, Katai. Well, we didn't mention Katai, but Gaitan, Basti, and I really wonder if Gaitan's going to be back here. If Pano's back here, in my opinion, if Pano's here, I don't see Gaitan staying. If Pano's gone, I see Gaitan possibly staying. But also, who would be the coach?
Right. There's so many questions. And with Gaitan, he's a DP if he comes back, right? And you probably want to spend big on your DPs to make a big splash in Soldier Field next year. Most likely. Where does he fit in there? If I'm the Fire, I would love to have Gaitan back, but not as a designated player. But if he's your DP,
that means he's under a $500,000 threshold. But
right, which means it's not going to happen.
It was not going to happen unless they change all of the thresholds for DPs, TAM, get rid of GAM TAM.
Yeah,
what have
and
you.
now the Fire would probably be one of those teams that would be like, let's just let it go. Let's just loosen all of the strings, the purse strings around the league. It's amazing how overnight they become. I saw somebody tweet this term. And I don't want to steal their thunder, but if I knew who it was, I'd give them credit. That they're a sleeping giant. I think it might have been Daniel Carell of NBC Sports saying that they're a sleeping giant, and
they've been a long time.
Right, and if you take off some of the handcuffs for roster rules with a new rich owner who wants to win and impress, the Fire then would become a very dangerous team in the transfer market. Now, I think there needs to be some rules in the league because MLS is still not at the point yet where it can go unfettered. So there needs to be some rules, but any sort of liberalization of the roster rules make them less draconian.
Yeah, but you got teams like LA who are trying to fill like 5 DPs, LAFC with like 5 DPs. People.
Well, don't you think it's possible? Not just possible. The Fire are one of those teams now.
Yeah, they have all the talent, but this strange thing about this year is they weren't able to put it together.
Yeah, but now they have the money. We think. Now they have the money. We think. And it's also, you got to hit on your DPs. You can, as the Fire have shown us in the past, and not just the Fire, a lot of teams have shown us in the past, just because you sign DPs and you spend big money doesn't mean you're going to get anything for that money. I mean, remember the Sean Maloney era? Remember the Kennedy Igboanike era? Designated players don't necessarily equal MVPs and trophies. You've got to get the right ones.
Yeah, but if you're getting Dries Mertens, Thierry Henry, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Carlos Vela, those are almost sure things. But they, like you said, they're also very expensive to get more known commodities.
They're very expensive to get known commodities, and you still need to have the right infrastructure for them to succeed.
But then you also have the players like over in Portland, the DP that went there, Villa, that was supposed to go to Chicago.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantee. There just simply isn't a guarantee. However, if you get enough DPs, there's a chance that one or two of them are going to hit. And I think this is going to be a very action-packed offseason for the Fire. And, even if none of this was happening, it would still have to have been because they're going to miss the playoffs. I think 538 gives them, 11% chance as of this morning? That they still needed to be an action-packed offseason.
I'm sorry. I was thinking.
Yeah, Valeri.
Valeri. Apologies.
Yeah. Yeah, it still needed to be an action-packed offseason, even if there wasn't new ownership. Now, there is new ownership, so I think that's going to just add to what should be a very interesting offseason. I'll just say this. I won't let my phone die at all this winter.
Today, it almost died just because of how crazy it's been. Everybody coming out of the Twitter woodworks.
My notifications today were a bit kooky. It was pretty intense, but in a good intense though. That means people care about the soccer team and they care about my writing and reading and reporting. So that's good too.
That's absolutely always support your Fire reporters, support your Fire news. I do believe that Brian is going to be making an appearance on the radio tonight, which is 9/13. It's Friday the 13th. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, I will. I'm set to go on at about 11 tonight talking with Julie DeCaro on the Score.
Oh, Julie's a big soccer fan, isn't she?
Yes, big soccer fan. Great talking soccer with her, except she's a Chelsea supporter.
Oh, no.
So, we can't allow that. But other than that, it's great. It's good to talk soccer. Good to talk the beautiful game with Julie. I'm sure a little bit of Tottenham will come up, but mostly I'm sure we'll be talking about the big news of the day and the big news of the week. It's really a fun time to cover soccer, to cover the Fire, because there's so much news. Let's face it, if none of this was happening, if there was no ownership change and there wasn't a move, this would be kind of a slog to find newsworthy stories right now. There's always there's good stories always, but sometimes you got to make them newsworthy. Now, I've gotten a lot of good ideas for stories, even that had nothing to do with this. But when a team's out of it, it's sort of hard to find really good angles to tie everything in. And that's not a problem right now.
I'm going to throw this out there. So I just thought of this just right now. If I was a U.S. men's national team, I would cut ties with Greg Berhalter and say thank you for your service, and allow the Chicago Fire to sign them as new head coach for next season, and then go and get Bradley from LAFC. Let LAFC figure out their coaching problems. We could get Berhalter in to here, and he could do his thing out of the back, and he'll be a lot more successful.
I don't know about that, and that's assuming. I think that's a big assumption that Veljko Paunovic. Yeah, big assumption that Veljko Paunovic is not going to be the coach next season. Obviously, it's still worth questioning, and still worth questioning whether Nelson Rodriguez is going to be with the Fire next season. But as I've said, I think in previous Periscopes, or I can't keep track of all my wheelings and dealings.
By the way, everybody, Brian always does Periscopes, almost always before the game. Yeah. He'll answer your questions live. It's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
He's in the press box. He's hunched down. He's got Oren behind him or something.
Yeah, if you want to see what all the other reporters look like and their funny faces for photobombing, you can just check those out because they enjoy photobombing. Usually Guillermo gets a photobomb, Danny gets a photobomb, but Oren, who sits next to me, will always make a funny face. So that's always a highlight. But
shout out to all those Fire reporters. Great works.
Yeah, we're all fun guys. But and that's the thing, we don't know. Maybe I haven't talked to Joe Mansueto yet. Maybe it's quite possible he likes Nelson Rodriguez and he likes Veljko Paunovic, and you could certainly make a case for why he would.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you listen to Fire Media and you read Fire Media, there would be. Because listening to Fire Media would be like the podcasts, or that's about it. And if you read the Fire Media, which is you guys, there is very little positive to be said about either of these two guys and the results that they've been producing. That's the issue. So, I mean, if he does have confidence in them, where is he getting this information from? And where is he getting this idea or the sense that these guys actually have the ability to have success when there are so many mistakes on record? Jack Harrison sold, missed opportunities everywhere.
Right. Well, here's what I'll say.
Including the season.
Right. Yeah.
With the second highest or third highest roster. I'm so sorry, Brian.
That's the third highest payroll, and I think expected goals are pretty high too. But here's the counter to that. Just saying, there's a couple things. First of all, you look at the 2017 season. That was a pretty good team. That was a good team. They were fun to watch. And, it didn't end well, but still third in the league is third in the league. Then, or you could say this way. I don't know Joe Mansueto again. Maybe he says, you know what? They were working under a previous owner. I want to give them a chance under me. And there's certainly a case to be made for that. They're familiar with I see you're nodding your head no.
The case is there's a 1% case of that, but 99% why would the results be any different with these same guys? How many picks of more picks of the apple trees do these guys got to get? They've given me one apple while I got New England that's all of a sudden pulling out a barrel full of apples out of nowhere.
I don't know. I'm just saying that until that nothing would surprise me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I've been, covering the Fire. This is my second stint covering the Fire, third season doing it over 2 stints. Nothing would surprise me.
It would surprise me because it wouldn't remove all of the. I feel okay. This next game, there's going to be such a lightness in the air. So much of the heaviness that was felt sometimes is going to be removed from the fans of the shoulders and the players, and even probably Paunovic and Nelson Rodriguez. Some of that's going to be gone. That negativity that's been kind of around this club because it was associated with Hotman's ownership, and so fans are going to be ready for the refresh. And they have 3 or 4 game audition. I think that's not. I don't think this should be an audition at all because they're go check the tape. Mansueto, go check the tape.
I'll agree with you with that. I'll agree with you with that. If it's if you're giving these guys a 4-game audition, that's one way or the other. The decision should be made already.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Whatever the decision is, it should be made. These 4 games. Look, let's face it. Unless the Fire win out, probably they're not going to matter. They're probably out of the playoffs. The decision should not. This would be a really small sample size. These guys have been, Nelson Rodriguez and Pauno have been together for almost 4 seasons now. So if my math is right, that's around 130 games, right? Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, if you're judging them out of 4, that's not good ownership. That's not good management. The decision should be made already. Now, of course, watch. They're going to win the last 4 games. They'll get into the playoffs to make a long run.
If they do that, if they do that, you know what? You've stamped your ticket for next year in a way.
But chances are the decision probably should have been made already.
The decision should have made on June 12th, 15th, whenever the heck the U.S. Open Cup loss was. That's when the decision really should have been made.
June 11th, I think.
June 11th. But we didn't have a chairman involved that was able to make that bold decision at that time. And I think that with this new chairman, hopefully he's able to make bold decisions and to bring in bold leaders, like maybe somebody like an Eric Winalda, who's over in Las Vegas doing wonderful things.
I don't know if that's the avenue I would.
If I was Mansueto, I would not be looking to install yes men.
No, but that's if he makes a change,
right?
And I don't know if he is. I can't sit here and say that I know that he will.
And I can't sit here and pretend I'm a better business owner than a billionaire.
Well, you don't know that.
No way. We'll just take a look at his bank count versus mine. True, yeah. I can't even.
yeah. My bank account is not comparable. The only thing that's comparable to the two is that they're both bank accounts.
That's true. Hey, we're both residents of planet Earth.
Yes,
we're both Americans.
Yeah, yes, that's all stuff we have in common, and we're all in some ways connected to the fire. But I think that's about the similarities end here. But I am looking forward to when I get a chance to talk to Joe Mansueto, to interview him, whether it's in person, over the phone, Skype, whatever, to get to know the guy, because I mean honestly. I've talked to Andrew Hauptman only a handful of times, and none at all this season. Remember, and when I covered them my first go around a couple years ago, I did meet him a few times. I talked to him on the record at the end of the 2014 season. So I did get to know him at least a little bit, but not a lot. It would be good to get for Joe Mansueto to get to know the fans,
absolutely,
to know the staff. And to get to know the media a little bit.
Is that normal for owners to kind of avoid the record? Do other teams' owners kind of do that?
I'm trying to think of right now about the other teams I've covered. Now I'm not a beat writer for any of the other teams. I fill in on on all the teams except for Bears. But let's see.
Arthur Blank over in Atlanta.
Arthur Blank in Atlanta. The other Chicago owners, Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't talk that.
Doesn't really talk that much, but it's weird that I kind of feel like I know the guy though.
Right. Well, you definitely know the guy. Rocky Wirtz, Tom Ricketts, I remember there was one stretch in 2015. I talked to Ricketts like 3 times in 4 days. That was weird. But
on the opening night of the Bears game against Packers, there's a nice old grandmotherly lady talking, and of course it's Virginia McCaskey, owner of the Bears.
Right. Yeah, and George McCaskey talks. I don't think it helped Andrew Hauptman's case that he didn't talk at all to the media the last couple of years. The Fire has my phone number. They have my email address. They can DM me whenever they want, and I'm sure, and they do. The Fire have been.
They can DM me too if they want to have a podcast.
Fire, I've had a lot of good contact with the Fire this season about the media relations team about stories and everything. And I'm sure if Andrew Hauptman wanted, he could have gotten my cell phone number from the front office. So, but and I would have loved to have talked to him. I still would, but I don't think that helped him very much. But in the end, the reason that the reaction to him was so unanimously negative today was the numbers I laid out, and the numbers everyone's laying out. 12 years, no trophies, no playoff wins in a decade, and just the state of the fan base. It's pretty easy, pretty simple,
and it's very selfish. It's very selfish of him that he couldn't offer any words on record, or words of support for the coach, for the general manager, for the team, and he avoided that. out of self-preservation, but the self-preservation was just pointless because I mean he's gone now, and so these selfish aims. I'm hoping that Mansueto can come in here and be a little bit more loose in the tongue. He doesn't have to be the Ricketts or the man or that type.
He doesn't have to be Jerry Jones.
Yeah, no, not at all. But he's got to be more than Mansueto, or he's got to be more than Andrew Hauptman.
But here's the thing, though: if Andrew Hauptman had won, nobody would care that he didn't talk.
But he didn't.
Right. If Andrew
Hauptman he has over 10 years of failure of nothing, zilch.
Right. If he had won more, people wouldn't have cared. The media would have called him on it. So, but then in the end, here's the thing, and I like to think of sometimes I inflate my own importance, and maybe sometimes even the media's importance. Whether or not a player or a coach or an owner is good with the media, in the end, doesn't matter. In the end, what matters is how are they to the fans, how are they to their employees, and do they win games?
And by not going on the record and sometimes giving an interview like that, to me, you're not giving anything to the fans, and that's just that selfish behavior. Right. It leads to an implosion.
There is that thought that it helps that the media and even team media channels, the Fire have a pretty decent in-house shop these days with media, and Andrew Hauptman had access to that too.
Mm-hmm.
He could have used that to communicate with the fans a little bit. I'm hopeful that Joe Mansueto communicates more, but in the end, does he win games and does he make the right decisions? And is he a good steward, not just for the Fire, but for the sport of soccer?
For the sport of soccer in Illinois.
And it's not just Illinois, the Midwest, the city, this whole region.
Maybe he can make friends with U.S. Soccer Federation just up the road.
Yeah, that's right. Soccer House is what, a mile from Soldier Field, if that.
And my question is, if the U.S. Soccer Federation is right there and the Fire right here, where is the Mecca of the Midwest for soccer training? Like a big, giant soccer warehouse where you could see Bastian Schweinsteiger and Dax McCarty training while you're just like some 13-year-old coming up through the ranks. And you get to see pros, and it's so inspirational. That's out in Kansas City.
Right. Yes.
It should also be here. And why can't you make it here? You could still have it in Kansas City. I'm sorry. You can still have it in Kansas City, but why not have a soccer mecca type environment type facility out here, which could do dual roles? It could serve the U.S. soccer feds, the U.S. men's national team could even practice here if it's such an awesome pitch, and also share it with the Chicago Fire.
Right. Well, that's on the to-do list for Joe Mansueto.
There's our idea, Mansueto. Hire me.
Yes. Yes. I don't know whether you're available, but I'm sure you would listen if
I'll help.
Talk. But no, that's on the to-do list. Joe Mansueto has a pretty long to-do list. First thing, obviously, finish the Soldier Field deal. Get that announced. It wasn't officially announced today. It was basic. If you look on the Fire website, there is still a page for Soldier Field updates. So it is not formally announced yet. Now it's going to happen, but get that announced. Get that out of the way. Get it done. Clear up any confusion. Second, I think you need to make a statement on the name of the team, which I'm tending to think will be the Fire, but you still make that announcement. Then you turn your attention to the soccer operations and making those decisions, because whatever you think about Nelson Rodriguez and Veljko Paunovic, and I like both of those guys a lot personally, by the way. I want to make that very clear. Personally, I've enjoyed talking with both of them. They're also human beings with families. Whatever you're going to do, tell them quickly. It's not fair to them.
Absolutely.
It's not fair to the front office and everyone else. Tell them your plans. Hey, Nelson. Hey, Pauno, you're in my plans. Sign another year on your lease. Or hey, guys, thanks for everything, but it's time to move on, because that gives them it gets rid of some of the uncertainty, and it also gives them a chance to land on their feet elsewhere. And those guys both deserve that, and it's good business too.
Yeah, you absolutely. You want to let everybody know who does come work for you. Hey, we do take care of people, and even when we got to move people on, we try to do it so they could get into their best situation and we can get into ours, and so it's beneficial. Yeah. And so I mean, yeah, like you're saying, he's got a lot on the table to do. And in addition, he's got to get more former Fire players in. He's got to get Peter Nowak back into the fold. He's got to get he's already got Klopas, but he has to get all these other former Fire players back into the fold, get them a little bit more under the Fire umbrella, come into a game or two, having a celebratory night for Brian McBride or for McGee or for anyone, or even for one of the goalkeepers that used to be here. There's so many players, DeMarcus Beasley, just like start reaching out to these guys, start getting them back into the Fire fold now that Mansueto's gone, start rebuilding those bonds.
Right, yeah, that's important too. And I think also rebuilding bonds with supporters.
Yeah.
Rebuilding, I mean, the Fire talk about how they want to get into all 77 neighborhoods in the city. I don't know if Joe Mansueto has the time to go to see all 77 neighborhoods in the city.
That's what a podcast's for, Joe Mansueto.
Yeah, hit a bunch of them. Do that and market the heck out of the team. You know, pay for ads, pay for billboards. I remember, I think it was the 2014 season. If I'm not mistaken, is you were on the just getting into the Dan Ryan. The start of the Dan Ryan, you saw, if you go in northbound on the Dan Ryan, right as it turns into the Kennedy, in front of downtown, you saw this big billboard for Mike McGee. Do you remember that? That was pretty cool for the Fire. Do that again. Whether it's Basti, who's here, whether he's here next year, or designated player TBD, whoever it is, do that. Market the team, buy advertising. Do things like that.
All right.
And
the easiest thing you could do, and you could start doing it tomorrow, get Chicago Fire radio ads on the radio. Get them on the sports radio. It just has to be a 30-second minute blurb. You can just mention the players' names. Mention Bastian Schweinsteiger. Mention homegrown Georgi Mihailovic. Mention big-time youth, big-time draft success, Brant Bronico coming up. Basically, making his name from a third-round draft pick or something like that. Just start getting these names into the heads of Chicago. And the easiest thing, I'll tell you, Mansueto, I'm telling you, hire me. I can help you. English radio. Get one. There's a million radio stations. You can get onto one of these radio stations and get an English radio for Chicago Fire games. You have to. The Spanish radio is fantastic. They have it on 1200 AM. I believe the past few years, it's been awesome. I will listen to it. I can barely understand Spanish. I can understand Spanish a little bit, but I mean, I listen to the World Cup in Spanish. I listen to Fire games in Spanish. I know enough Pelota, the Fire, the names, and all that kind of stuff, passing and all that stuff. So, but get on English sports radio. Get on an AM station. There's got to be one that you should be able to make a favorable deal that's beneficial for both of you. Start getting out there. And that's what the Fire has done. They've pulled back. They've pulled back from being on TV, pulled back from being on the radio, pulled back from all these things. Now it's time to start stretching out and making your arms and getting your tentacles into the city of Chicago, into the lake. You're right next to the lake. Get your tentacles into that lake.
Yeah, there's a lot they have to do. There is a lot they have to do. And I'm surprised you didn't mention the TV deal. But
the TV deal, I mean, does that have to change? I think they're still locked in with ESPN.
I think they have another year, if I'm not mistaken.
And here's the other thing. If they flee from that deal, does that really send good business signs too? I mean, just all of a sudden abandon your ESPN deal.
Right. That's once again Joe Mansueto, better businessman than us.
Right.
I think.
I would think.
I
would bet on it.
Yeah. All I know is that this is going to be an incredibly interesting offseason. It was going to be anyway. But now you have all of this stuff. It's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. Honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun. And frankly, I have a lot of fun covering the Fire, to be honest. Even in the coldest, chilliest games at that outdoor press box at SeatGeek Stadium. Now, and here's the thing. Before I sign off here, I'm going to say that I have a lot of good memories of SeatGeek Stadium, covering the team there over 3 seasons and 2 stints. I don't know if a lot of people would share that sentiment, but I'm looking forward tomorrow, not just to covering the game and seeing all my friends in the press box and, interviewing the players and the coach and Pano and who knows, whoever else after the game tomorrow, but just, I still get a good feeling from walking up to the stadium and seeing it. I still get excited when I go on Harlem and I go up that hill and I see the supports for the roof at SeatGeek Stadium. I still get a good feeling from that. And I hope that a lot of people also get that same feeling from anything else that interests them. And that I hope that people haven't lost that the last however long they've been upset at the Fire.
Well, all you Fire fans, if you ever do feel nostalgia for Bridgeview, get out to a Red Stars game. They will be there next season.
Right, we think.
And we think. We'll see. But we think that they'll be there next season, and they're still going to be top-notch, very good team. 2 comments I saw. Badge and name are the only things worth keeping about the team. But I don't, we've said, there's definitely a few things more. I mean, you could dig deeper and find things to keep.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people in the organization who have been in the organization even through the losing. There's that, and there is good community, and there's a lot worth keeping.
And then this suggestion: maybe Nelson Rodriguez runs the business side, and Mansueto hires a new technical director or a GM to run the soccer side. And I wonder,
you can make an argument for that.
You could make an argument for that. Yeah, you could make an argument for that. And I think a lot of fans would be a lot happier with that. I think you could sell that to the fans just as easy as you could sell getting a new GM and just firing or getting rid of Nelson Rodriguez and Paunovic. But getting that technical GM would be a sell. You could do that.
Right, yeah. I mean, also, that would be quite the Cubs parallel, because if you remember, Crane was the Cubs president, and then when they hired Theo Epstein, he's become the president of business operations.
And Crane's been a very big time asset for them.
Crane, yeah. I mean, look at the stadium now. I mean, Wrigley Field certainly has another 100 years left to it. So, and that's partially because of Crane Kenny. So, it wouldn't be the worst. There's some merit to that idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's about it, though, Brian. Thank you so much for taking the time. Check Brian out later tonight on with Julie DeCaro. I think it's 6:70 a.m., correct?
Yeah, 6:70 a.m. Aaron, I think a little bit later tonight. But also, while I have this chance, I just want to thank everybody who has read my stuff over this season, enjoyed some of my tweets, disagreed with them, and all of that. It's been fun. It's soccer means a lot to me. If you know my family history, you know it means a lot to me and my brother. Your brother's out in Bayern, right? My brother works for Bayern Munich, and yeah, that's so cool. Yes, I know it's weird to say, but it means soccer means a lot to me. It means a lot to my brother. It means a lot to my family. It's been cool to get back into the swing of covering the Fire. And yeah, I'm just thankful to everybody, and you as well, and you especially for having me on the show a couple of times. It's been much appreciated. I'm so grateful that you have the time whenever I do reach out to come on. And thanks to all of our guests, past and future. Thanks to all the viewers live and after the fact. Thank you so much. Smash that like button. Share this. Retweets are always appreciated. Spread the Fire. Retweet soccer links. Retweet the news links that are out there, just so people can get this. The more eyes we get at this, the more you spread the Fire. Fan those flames. It's so simple. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Man. I'm sorry, Brian, but thank you so much. That was amazing. Great information. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys later for another episode of Spitting Fire. I think that's about it. Check Brian out on the Sun Times and on Twitter. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. We will see you guys later. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. All right, Fire Down footballers. We'll see you guys next time.